with regards to the finely tuned aspects of the universe, like the idea that gravity, if it was 0.00x stronger, life would not exist because everything would collapse on itself, and if it was 0.00 weaker, the perfect chemical reactions wouldn't occur. Now, the chances of the universe being created is something like if you roll the dice 60 million times and it landed on 6 repeatedly. And I'd say to you guys, for me, it's easier to comprehend if I attribute this idea to God or something that is out of the physical capabilities of what we can understand. Do you guys just throw away these finely tuned aspects of the universe?
Is God greater than the universe?
Yes, I would say yes.
Is God with his traits like he can hear and listen and know everything? Is he the most maximally, let's say, the most complex being out there to you?
Yes, definitely.
What I'm trying to show you is you are arguing that a being that is way more complex than the universe exists without a cause, but the universe can't exist with a cause that is not as complex as God, right? Think about eternity like rolling a dice. If time is eternal, eternity necessitates that anything and every combination, no matter how long it will take or no matter how little the chance it will have, because if eternity exists, it will happen. Fine-tuning, the argument itself, it cherry picks on the things that appear designed to us, but negates things that don't appear as designed to us, right? If you're walking in a forest and you pick up a rock, and if you find a watch, which one are you going to think is designed versus not designed?
Yeah.
The watch, right? But then we have to understand that the rock itself is also part of the same universe. It's just that it doesn't appear to them, but you're cherry picking on just the design things and leaving out the things that don't appear to you as design. And when you actually think about your perception of design, then comes out from how things emerge around you and your reality.
When we say the chance, the reality is the chance might have been 100%. You can't say the chance is 0.0000. We don't know. We don't have the conditions where we can say that it has to be exactly this. There may be many universes. There may be every single possible universe that can exist, might exist. And if that's the case, then we can't say that it's unlikely because, well, there's a universe with every condition, right? We don't know that, right? There may be natural selection of universes. This is a beautiful point, that it could be that the universes with the right conditions are naturally selected to survive and they continue existing, because if the weak nuclear force was a little bit more or the strong nuclear force was a little bit more, the universe would have collapsed. Well, there you go. The ones that collapsed, they probably did collapse if there were multiple universes. We don't know. Like when theists try to say the universe is improbable and it's perfectly coincides, it's in a way the puddle issue. There's a hole in the ground and it rains. The puddle says, "Look, this hole was made for me." But actually, no, the hole wasn't made for the puddle. The puddle exists because of the hole. We could say, wow, this planet is just right in the perfect position.
Think of it. Every planet is a roll of a dice, and it might have life or not on it. So when we think about it that way, you have, let's say, billions and billions and billions of failed attempts at life, but you have one real one. So that's not a sign of fine-tuning. For example, some theists say that, universe is fine-tuned for life. No, it looks more fine-tuned to create black holes and dead planets than lively planets, right? So against what's important is your point of reference, where why do you perceive human life to be fundamental? If the Earth didn't exist, the universe would keep existing. It did and it does. Think about God having the ability to feel love, hear your voice when you pray to him. This is a question I want to ask you. Does God have a mind? Can software run without hardware?
No, but I understand what you're saying, but I would say that's to our definition of what a mind is.
Yeah, but then that's, again, you're also taking a huge leap of faith where you don't have any evidence of any minds existing without hardware. But you're trying to think that God's mind exists without hardware, right?
Jalal, I think this originator of the universe, well, I can possibly believe that there's a possibility that there's a God. But when you talk about a God that goes and involves himself in the matter of humans and created angels and jinns and talked to humans in a cave, then it starts to all fall apart, and really does. So that's why I tend to really go back to the details of religion rather than focusing on whether God existed or God didn't exist. It's true. Like when you look at the details, it becomes a joke. This is God. Like this is a creator of like the Sirius, like the binary stars of the cell, the living. You believe that this same God is revealing to Muhammad that he can marry his adopted son's ex-wife because that's important for humanity. It doesn't make sense. You're talking about two different beings here.
This is the best argument that the theists have when it comes to cosmology. Given that, it is still a terrible argument. It is not at all convincing. I will give you 5 quick reasons why theism does not offer a solution to the purported fine-tuning problem. First, I am by no means convinced that there is a fine-tuning problem. It is certainly true that if you change the parameters of nature, our local conditions that we observe around us would change by a lot. I do not grant that therefore life could not exist. I will start granting that once someone tells me the conditions under which life can exist. What is the definition of life, for example? If it's just information processing, thinking, or something like that, there's a huge panoply of possibilities. Sadly, we just don't know whether life could exist if the conditions of our universe were very different because we only see the universe that we see. Secondly, God doesn't need to fine-tune anything. We talk about the parameters of physics and cosmology, the mass of the electron, the strength of gravity, and we say if they weren't the numbers that they were, then life itself could not exist. That really underestimates God by a lot. I would think that no matter what the atoms were doing, God could still create life. God doesn't care what the mass of the electron is, he can do what he wants. The only framework in which you can honestly say that the physical parameters of the universe must take on certain values in order for life to exist is naturalism. The third point is that the fine-tunings that you think are there might go away once you understand the universe better. There's a famous example that theists like to give, or even cosmologists who haven't thought about it enough, that the expansion rate of the early universe is tuned to within 1 part in 10 to the 60th. That's the naive estimate back of the envelope, pencil, and paper you would do. But in this case, you can do better. You can go into the equations of general relativity, and there is a correct, rigorous derivation of the probability. And when you ask the same question using the correct equations, you find that the probability is 1. I can't say that all parameters fit into that paradigm, but until we know the answer, we can't claim that they're definitely finely tuned. Number 4, there's an obvious and easy naturalistic explanation in the form of the cosmological multiverse. There's no reason, no right that we have to expect that the whole entire universe looks like the conditions we have right now. But more importantly, if you take the multiverse as your starting point, you can make predictions. We live in an ensemble, and we should be able to predict the likelihoods that the conditions around us take different forms. Fifth, and most importantly, theism fails as an explanation. Even if you think the universe is finely tuned and you don't think that naturalism can solve it, theism certainly does not solve it. What kind of universe would we expect? So the amount of tuning, if you thought that the physical parameters of our universe were tuned in order to allow life to exist, you would expect enough tuning but not too much. Under naturalism, a physical mechanism could far over-tune by an incredibly large amount that has nothing to do with the existence of life, and that is exactly what we observe. For example, the entropy of the early universe is much, 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 much lower than it needs to be to allow for life. You would expect under theism that the particles and parameters of particle physics would be enough to allow life to exist and have some structure that was designed for some reason, whereas under naturalism, you'd expect them to be kind of random and a mess. Guess what? They are kind of random and a mess. You would expect under theism life to play a special role in the universe. Under naturalism, you'd expect life to be very insignificant. I hope I don't need to tell you, life is very insignificant as far as the universe is concerned.